All names in this story have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. Story 1. It happened a few years ago when I was still living in Minnesota. It started on a cold winter night. You know the kind where the air stings your face, and everything is so quiet you can hear the snow crunching under your boots. Yeah, one of those nights. My cousin Lee and I had just finished hanging out at his place. We'd been watching scary movies, laughing and talking about life, normal stuff. I told him I was heading home, but Lee looked at me all serious and said, "You sure you want to drive tonight?" I laughed it off. "What, you think a ghost is gonna get me?" He didn't laugh. "I'm serious, man, it's late, and they're out there." I rolled my eyes. "All right, Grandma, I'll be fine." So I got in my car and started driving. The road was empty, just me and my old beat-up Honda Civic cruising through the snow-covered streets. Everything was fine at first. The heater was cranked up and I had my music playing to keep me company, but then, as I got closer to my neighborhood, something felt wrong. It wasn't anything I could put my finger on. Just that gut feeling, like when someone's watching you, but you can't see them. The streetlights seemed dimmer than usual. I shrugged it off. "You're just psyching yourself out," I told myself. But then I saw her. At first, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. There was this figure standing on the side of the road, right at the edge where the snow met the asphalt. She was wearing a white dress, thin, almost like she didn't know it was freezing out. Her hair was long and black, hanging over her face. I slowed down, thinking maybe she needed help. "Hey!" I called out, rolling down my window just a crack. "You okay?" She didn't move. I pulled over and left the engine running. Something in me said I shouldn't get out of the car, but I couldn't just leave her there either. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove compartment and pointed it at her. "Miss, are you lost?" She turned her head slowly, too slowly, and that's when I saw her face. It was very blue, and her mouth was wide open, like she was screaming silently. I froze. She started walking toward me, her feet dragging in the snow. I panicked, dropping the flashlight. My hands fumbled as I tried to put the car in gear. "Not tonight," I muttered. "Not tonight." The engine roared as I slammed on the gas, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, she wasn't there anymore. Just gone, like she'd never been there in the first place. I sped all the way home, heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst out of my chest. But the story doesn't end there. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face or whatever that was. I kept hearing her footsteps in the snow, even though I was safe inside my house. The next morning, I told my mom about it. She listened, nodding like she already knew what I was going to say. "Did you tell her your name?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, why?" "Good," she said. "Because if you do, she'll follow you." "What do you mean?" My mom sighed, like she didn't want to explain but felt like she had to. "Those kind of ghosts, they wander looking for someone to take with them. If you give them your name, it's like inviting them into your life. They won't leave you alone." My blood ran cold. What am I supposed to do? She grabbed a bundle of incense and lit it. "Don't drive at night for a while." I listened to her, of course. You don't mess around with stuff like that. For weeks I stayed home after dark. The worst part, I started hearing things at night. Soft tapping on my window, like someone lightly knocking. I'd open the curtains, but no one would be there. Then one night, I woke up to find wet footprints leading from the front door to my bedroom. I told my mom about it, and she invited a shaman over. The shaman told me the same thing my mom did, that the ghost had seen me and wanted to take me with her. He performed a ceremony, burning paper and chanting in the ancient language. I don't know exactly what he did, but after that, the tapping stopped. I haven't seen her since, but sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I catch myself glancing at the side of the road, just in case. Story 2. So you know how we all have that one spot we go to when we just need to escape, right? A place to think or just get away from all the noise of life. Well, for me, it was this little park near my apartment. It was nothing fancy, just some swings, a couple of benches, and an old tree that had probably been there since the 1800s or something. I liked going there when I wanted to clear my head, and it was always pretty quiet. No one really came there much, especially at night. I guess it was because it was kind of creepy, but for me, that's what made it perfect. One night, after a long day of work, I decided I needed to hit the park for a bit. You know that feeling when your brain's just buzzing but you don't know how to shut it off? That's how I was feeling. So, I grabbed a soda and stumbled out the door. Nothing special, just a regular Tuesday night. I don't know why, but I felt like something was off that night. As soon as I got to the park, it felt different. But I brushed it off. I wasn't going to let some weird feeling stop me from my usual hangout. I walked past the swings, ignoring how they creaked like they always did, and sat down on my favorite bench under the old tree. I cracked open my soda, took a sip, and leaned back. It's funny, sometimes when you're alone, you start thinking about weird things. I started wondering about the park, like who had come there before me. I mean, it had to have been there for a long time, right? What if someone had died there? It wasn't out of the question, but it didn't bother me. I've heard the stories from my family, you know? The ones about ghosts, spirits, and all that stuff. They told me not to mess with things I didn't understand, but I never really paid attention. But that night, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was watching me. I shrugged it off, told myself it was just the dark. But then I heard it. It was faint at first, like the sound of someone whispering, but then it got louder. It didn't make any sense. I was the only one in the park, right? I turned around, but there was no one there. The swings were still and the benches were empty. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then I heard it again. This time it was clearer. A voice calling out a name. I leaned forward, feeling my heart pick up a little pace. The voice said, "Timothy." It wasn't a loud shout or anything, just soft, like a whisper in the wind. I froze. The thing is, no one called me by my full name, especially not in a place like this. I didn't know anyone who'd come out here this late, and the voice didn't sound familiar. I got to admit, my nerves were starting to get the best of me. I stood up, scanning the park, but again, no one was there. I looked toward the old tree. The thing about it was always creepy to me, even during the day. I mean, it was huge, with branches that stretched out like arms, just waiting to grab something. That night, though, it looked different. It wasn't just the shadows playing tricks on me. The tree seemed alive, if that makes sense. The wind picked up, and I heard it again. "Timothy." This time it was louder, more urgent, like someone was calling me. I turned my head quickly, and that's when I saw it. At first, it looked like a shadow moving under the tree, but then I realized it was something else. It was like a figure, but it wasn't fully formed. It was just this blur of blackness, shifting like it was trying to make itself solid. I don't know how to explain it, but it looked like it was trying to take shape, like something wasn't quite right about it. And that voice, that whisper, it was coming from this thing. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there staring at it. The figure, it didn't have a face. It was just a shadow, but its presence was so strong, so oppressive. I could feel it in my chest, like it was pressing down on me. The air was thick, and I could barely breathe. Then the figure spoke again. "Timothy, come here." Something about the way it said my name made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a name anymore, it felt like a command. Like if I didn't listen, something bad would happen, but at the same time, I didn't want to go anywhere near it. The instinct in me told me to run, but I couldn't. My feet felt glued to the ground and my body was frozen in place. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It was like the thing was pulling me in, making me stare. The more I looked, the clearer it became. It wasn't just a shadow anymore, it looked like a person, or at least part of one. There was a face, but it was distorted, stretched out in a way that didn't make sense. It was like seeing a person in a funhouse mirror. The figure took a step forward, and I heard it crackle like dry leaves underfoot. My heart was pounding in my chest now, and I was sure I was going to faint. I knew I had to get out of there, but I couldn't bring myself to move. And that's when the thing said something I'll never forget. "Timothy, come stay with me." The air around me seemed to get colder, and I could feel my body starting to tremble. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. I tried to step back, but my legs wouldn't move. I was stuck staring at that horrible thing, and I couldn't stop it. The figure reached out a hand, and I could feel it reaching for me. And then, I don't know what happened. 1 second it was there, and the next it was gone. Just like that. I blinked, and it disappeared. The air felt lighter, and I could breathe again, but my legs were shaking. I finally managed to move, running out of the park and back to my apartment. I didn't stop until I was safely inside, locking the door behind me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to that figure. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was a ghost, maybe it wasn't, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never go back to that park again. And to this day, I don't know what that thing was, but I don't want to find out. I just pray I never have to. That's it for now. I hope you enjoy this story. If you did, check out more of my videos on the screen above or visit my channel for even more. Don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Stay safe and take care.